Now on Denver 7 News at 4, the monkeypox virus is having a disproportionate effect on people of color. We take a look at the efforts being made to make a change.
Baby boomers are now one of the fastest growing groups of people experiencing homelessness. We're looking into what's driving this trend. And restoring our forests is a key part of fighting climate change. But just how realistic are ambitious goals like planting more than 1 billion trees in the next decade?
Plus, a school shutdown is looming in the metro. As we wait for the official list, we take a look at the reasons behind the decision and which students will be affected.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Micah Smith. Let's start by taking a live look outside. The day started out pretty sunny, but over the past hour, gray clouds have started covering that sky. Ooh. Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson joins us now. Mike, is rain going to follow those gray clouds?
We'll see some rain down here, more in the mountains. This is a live view up at Avon Beaver Creek. Pretty good rain coming down there. This is what it looked like in Denver over the last 2 hours. The blue skies replaced by gray. A few light rain showers coming in, mostly gusty winds, not a whole lot of rain with those. This is the view across the state. Heaviest moisture still is up into the mountains, and we're watching some of the burn scars up here. Right now, no warnings in effect up on the Cameron Peak burn scar or East Troublesome, but on Grizzly Creek, we do have a flash flood watch in effect until 8 o'clock tonight, and you see those showers creeping out into the Denver area, but the surface air is pretty dry, so a lot of this will evaporate before it reaches the ground. We'll get gusts 30, 40 miles per hour of wind and some lightning. Temperatures have been as hot as 90 today in Denver. It's now down to 81 degrees because of those clouds and scattered showers. I'll have your full weekend forecast coming up in about 10 minutes.
Looking forward to it, Mike. A man accused of attacking 2 men for speaking Spanish at an Aurora gas station is now in custody and facing a number of charges. Police took 28-year-old Rainy Kosum into custody yesterday afternoon, not too far from where the alleged attack happened. Investigators say he attacked the victims while they were trying to pump gas and yelled that they don't belong here. This happened last month at Rocket gas station near Mississippi South and Havana. The victims told investigators Kosum doused one of them with gas and tried to set him on fire before throwing a rock through the back of their car window and stealing their keys. The attack was so traumatizing, one of the victims told Denver 7 he's leaving the country tomorrow. Today, a judge set Kosum's bond at $150,000 because of the seriousness of the allegations and because he's failed to appear in court for lower charges. His next court date is at the end of next month. Also new this afternoon, Mesa County's deputy clerk has agreed to testify against Tina Peters in an election tampering case. Belinda Nicely entered a plea deal today, pleading guilty to criminal trespassing, violation of duty, and first-degree official misconduct. Deputy Clerk Nicely will serve 2 years probation and 150 hours of community service in exchange for her cooperation with the investigators. Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters is facing 11 criminal charges and is currently out on bail. She's also prohibited from contacting employees at her office. We're learning more about a major move aimed at cutting pollution in California. State regulators approved new rules that will ultimately ban the sale of new gas-powered vehicles in the state by 2035. Experts say this could reshape America's car market by fueling the transition to more climate-friendly vehicles. ABC's Morgan Norwood shows us.
The state of California set to adopt a policy that ultimately could end the era of filling up at the local gas station. California setting a 2035 deadline for all new cars, trucks, and SUVs sold in the state to be powered by hydrogen or electricity.
This is really important for reducing climate changing emissions. I mean, simply put, we can't address climate change without addressing transportation emissions.
It's a measure trumpeted by Governor Gavin Newsom for the past 2 years. Critics have argued that infrastructure, the availability of charging stations, the capacity of the energy grid, and vehicle pricing isn't quite ready for these regulations, leaving car dealers to wade through the soaring demand and limited supply.
EVs have been very popular. It's made up about 40% of our sales this year, actually, and when you include hybrids and plug-in hybrids, it's over 50%.
Automakers are going to have to make more electric vehicles. That means more models in different sizes and different price points.
The new policy not only gives stringent new rules on the sale of new gasoline cars, it also sets zero-emission sales goals for new cars over the next 13 years. But California isn't alone in its quest to phase out gas-powered cars. Governments all around the world have set their own goals, though experts say these new regulations in California could influence other states, as California is the largest auto market in the country.
If that group of states that tends to follow California's lead were to do so with this as well, it would be roughly 30% of the population in the U.S. would now be living somewhere where there would be this requirement.
The new electric vehicle rules will also require federal approval, but even if that happens, Californians can still buy a used gas-powered vehicle after 2035. Morgan Norwood, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Last week, the state health department released new numbers showing monkeypox, or MPV, is having a disproportionate impact on communities of color. Now, local health organizations are working to stop that trend. Vivint Health Clinic is providing testing and vaccinations at its clinic on Leetsdale in Denver, and the Center for African American Health is working to educate the community about the virus.
What we do here at the center is try to erase some of that stigma, and again with education and information to the different communities. So I think at a state level, what needs to happen is they need to look around the room and see who's at the table.
Nonprofits say funding is also an issue. I'll take a closer look at the statewide response to MPV in communities of color tonight at 6.
Today we're getting a better idea of the impact pandemic isolation and later loosened restrictions had on young adults. A new study by the National Institute of Drug Abuse found that vaping, alcohol, marijuana, and hallucinogenic use among people between 19 to 30 all rose significantly last year, and that was after a big drop in 2020.
In 2021, we started to see an uneasiness in a lot of the restrictions that we had in the past. So restaurants were opening, bars were opening, we were all getting together. And that is always an opportunity for people that are together to use drugs.
Nora Volkov is the Institute's director. She says in addition to the return of socializing, both marijuana and hallucinogenic use are rising due to changing perspectives about the drugs, things like medical marijuana and the use of ketamine for depression. So why study this age group specifically? Well, Volkov says it's because even though they're technically adults, their brains are still developing through their mid-20s, specifically the part that controls executive function.
And so what is executive function? Is our ability to actually analyze a situation and based on the information that we have in front of us, make a decision. And based on the decision, we have the executive control to carry it through.
Now, she says the study shows that this age group is one of the most impacted by illness exacerbated by COVID, and it highlights the need for more depression screening and treatment specifically for them. Now, a major drop in the amount of monkeypox cases. The news feed starts with a worldwide decrease of more than 20%. It is, though, still a serious issue. In the past month, more than 60% of cases have been right here in the United States. Pfizer says it's seeing success in a vaccine candidate for RSV. Now, it was more than 85% successful in patients 50 and up. Each year, around 177,000 people go to the hospital in the U.S. with that respiratory virus. Now, it's not as much good news for Paxlovid, which is Pfizer's COVID pill. There's a new study out of Israel that found no real benefit in people in their 40s all the way up to 65 years old. Now, this pill is given to people who already have COVID. You might remember the president and first lady recently took it. New research is putting a dollar amount on the impacts of long COVID. The Brookings Institution says roughly $170 billion a year is being lost in wages, and that comes from estimates that between 2 to 4 million Americans are out of work due to their long COVID symptoms. That includes extreme fatigue, shortness of breath, and brain fog. In a report earlier this year, the research group estimated 15% of the country's labor shortage was due to long COVID. Unemployment claims are starting to go back down. Applications fell by 2,000 last week, according to the Labor Department, but the 4-week average did go up. Economists say the job market remains strong. Now, one of the fastest growing groups of people dealing with homelessness may not be who you would expect.
You never really think that it's going to happen to you because you're going to think that you're smart enough. You know, you've got an education. You know, you've had a six-figure salary.
What is causing more baby boomers to end up on the streets?
Also coming up, booking a flight often comes with preparing for the worst. We take a look at how one flight filled with Coloradans was a scenario you would see in your nightmares.